Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are back with another Neurodiversity Stories, and we have an absolutely incredible guest. We have Mel Sims, who is going to be talking to us. We're going to be touching on the subject around neurodiversity. We're also going to be talking about the subject about shame. We're going to be also talking about how organizations operate, and we're also going to be talking about access to work. This is going to be an absolute jam-packed session within this. Mel is an absolutely incredible and inspirational individual, and we will be welcoming her soon. As always, guys, please let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to reach many different countries. We're up to 19 different countries now, which is amazing. So not everyone is watching this on the live, so people are on the replay. So please do, if you're watching on the live, then just chuck in a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're watching this on a replay, again, just let us know that you enjoyed this. This will be the last episode for season 2, and we're taking a little bit of a break, but we will be back in the future for season 3. So even more reason why you should stick around, not because it's just the last episode, but to see my incredible guest, Mel Sims. Now, I want to say a massive thank you to all the previous guests that have helped on season 1 and season 2. Another massive thank you to all of the sponsors, and I want to give a massive shout out to our current sponsors, which is Promova, which is a one-time solution for all of your language learning needs. And please do check this out. From our sponsors, Promova are a one-stop solution for all of your language learning needs. Now, we all know how difficult and challenging it can be to learn a new language, especially if you have dyslexia. Now, this is where they're different, because they are the first platform to introduce a dyslexia mode. And I've got to tell you from firsthand experience, this has been an absolute game changer for me, because I've tried to learn languages for many, many years before in different ways. But the fact that they're now making it available and to assist me in certain ways, I can work through these modules with ease. It has been an absolute game changer. Please do check them out. They are used by over 15 million people across the globe. So they are doing incredible work. There is a 50% discount on the premium version in the link below. Please do click on the link and start your learning language journey.
Picture this: mastering a new language in just 10 minutes a day. Too good to be true? With Promova, it's a reality. We are a one-stop solution for all your language learning needs. This innovative platform has all the tools to create a unique learning plan based on your goals and interests. With Promova, you can learn languages through bite-sized lessons, anywhere, anytime. Learn vocabulary you'll actually use in real life. Polish your speaking skills and train your ear with audio lessons. Dive into books for full immersion. Need some personalized guidance? Our expert tutors are just one click away, whether you prefer one-on-one or group lessons. Achieve your language learning goals with Promova.
So guys, that is Promova. The link will be on there. Please do check them out. Incredible company doing incredible things. Now, on to our main event. I'm going to be welcoming our incredible guest, Mel Sims. So Mel was diagnosed only 4 years ago with ADHD. Mel has now coached hundreds of people from ages of 9 to 75, and also a neurodivergent coach for many companies, including the BBC. She has not only this side of it, but an absolute incredible marketing background. But what I'm really keen to do is obviously discuss around her kind of a story, and also the topics that we mentioned as well. So please do grab your coffee, sit back, and let's welcome Mel Sims. Good morning, Mel. Thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, you're welcome. Lovely to see you.
Likewise. Mel, for the people that don't see, aren't connected with you, and why aren't they? And the incredible work that you do, could you just give us a brief kind of synopsis, I guess, a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Including a bit of the past or more about now?
Either or.
Either or.
Yeah.
I always lived by the sea. I always lived by the trees. And I noticed from a really early age that they calmed me. And I at school felt a very different way. I never felt calm inside. I was always positively counting down the hours until the end of the day, because I think I came across a little bit different. I didn't like small talk. I was the one that always had my hand up all the time to answer things, which annoyed my fellow students. I had this absolute keen hyper focus on mathematics, which wasn't that cool. And so I forever noticed funny looks like these. The tuts when I walked in, and so on and so forth. And I never understood why they were so real. They really hurt. They were sort of tiny micro paper cuts. And of course, at that stage, I was born in 1972. I'm 52 or 53, 52. We never know how old we are. Teachers would say things that were completely tactless. You know, for example, what's the matter with you? Why haven't you done it right? Or why aren't you listening? Or why have you forgotten it? And I think from that very young age, I started feeling not good enough. And it's only been through writing, I journal a lot, which is what I recommend people do as well, that I used to say I felt different. And I've really explored it in the last year. I felt not good enough. And I think that's why I wanted to talk to you about the shame. So I used the life experience over the last 4 years to really look at ways that I could have perhaps missed the fact that I had ADHD, to be able to work with people and say, whether you're diagnosed or not, I don't care. But being in this shame loop all the time is going to wreck work, marriages, your happiness. And so I've used all of my experience. I'm now a neurodivergent coach, and I love marketing as well. So that's my mix.
Mel, thank you so much for sharing that. I was really kind of intrigued when I reached out and you said, can we talk about shame? As I mentioned before we came onto this, I said I've got goosebumps in the sense of talking about
the word.
Yeah, but literally as soon as you said it, it sends shivers down this side of it. And how do we, as we're kind of growing up, you know, going through kind of the school age and then, you know, job and life and experience and relationships and everything else, you mentioned about those paper cuts of, and it was an incredible analogy of how that impacts someone. Do we, with regards to kind of shame, would you say that we kind of just carry this and continuously build this level of you know, even more shame, or we kind of look back on certain things? How would you describe that?
This is us now. This is you and I now. This is the little shame that we've carried around, and we've put on different outfits, and we've grown up, and we've had life experiences. But inside, that shame rattle will always be there until you understand that actually, as an ADHDer, the thing that you kept beating yourself up about, if someone had taken me to one side and explained to me about executive functioning or things that typically I will find hard, I would have stopped for 48 years thinking, okay, if I get the lighting right, if I get the music right, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And there's certain things I can't do. And I think that only when I realized why I couldn't do those things could I begin to get out of this journey of shame.
Do you think when you say you couldn't do these things, is this things that we have to do? Because traditionally, school, for instance, the educational system, let's just talk about the UK side of it, is set in a certain way that we learn certain language and we perform in a certain way. We sit at a certain desk at certain times, and it's done for certain times. And it's very lateral in the sense that these are the rules that we have to abide by, you know, and abide by. We have to follow, basically. You know, the English lesson is an hour. You need to sit there. You need to either, you know, do these things. Is that the element that we find difficult because these are the things that we struggle to do? So then the shame comes with that we're not able to do it. We are able to do it just in a different way. Would you say that that's kind of?
I think you're right. And I think there's also a gender difference as well. And there's also the fact that your family might be crazy and chaotic, or it might be very controlled perfectionist as a coping mechanism. So, for example, at school, the boys will probably hear and feel the shame quicker because they'll be told, sit down, what are you doing? Why are you playing up? So on. We're mimicking in the back. We're really good mimics. And then by about A-levels, we've caught up with the boys in terms of our shame, because the lack of deadlines, the more easy, cool structure of you can go to the lesson, you might not want to go to the lesson. All of that's terrible because we can't prioritize or get our timing in order, etc., etc. So I would say by about the age of about 17, we've got terrible shame, male or female. And then, of course, you go out and you socialize, and standing at the student uni bar talking about shame is not really a conversation anybody is going to have. People, fortunately nowadays, unlike us, can go online and maybe look at my Insta or yours or watch a YouTube video about shame and think, oh yeah, I've got that. But moving to talk about it with someone else doesn't happen. And so you go through your life just feeling not good enough and not pushing yourself hard enough, when actually we could have perhaps not got to that stage if we'd been told, you're always going to find time keeping hard. You're always going to find keeping to a list hard. You're going to probably interrupt and put your hand up a bit more than other people. So that's our learning. But from the teacher side, the school side, there are so many changes that are needed. You know, we cannot, as ADHDers, sit in a lesson that we just adore, get in our flow. Mine was maths maybe. And then that awful bell rings, which I live behind a primary school, right? And it's traumatic when that bell rings now. I'm 52.
Almost like a siren now, isn't it? It's from a
bell.
It's almost like a ship.
Like there's a war about to start noise. And then you'd like put your bags in and there'd be loads of noise and loads of overwhelm. Again, I had no idea I had all this sensory stuff going on until I was diagnosed. I think I thought everyone was the same, but they were winning at life more than me. Then you'd be plonked, then you'd go in the playground, it would all be like, well, then the bullies would come by, so you'd think, oh my God. Then you'd sit in a lesson which you had absolutely no interest in, and then you'd be picked on within the first 5 minutes of the teacher going, Mel, come on, what's the matter with you? You're not very good at this, are you? And nobody knew in the 80s what was going on. So for me, and I coach an awful lot of teenagers who have been suspended or even expelled. And part of my job coaching them is to rebuild the fact that this should not have happened to you. It's not your fault. Every emotion is valid. It's about the behaving. And of course, if you are going to already feel ashamed, you're probably going to lash out and be a bit angry. And so I hope some teachers are watching this as well, in terms of when a child is fiddling with blue tack or banging their pen or whatever, they're not doing it to annoy you, teacher. They're doing it to self-regulate because they're bored and they need dopamine going on just to sit in this spot for another 48 minutes. School was hell.
Do you know what? There's so many things. And there's someone literally, Elaine Godley had put mentioned light bulb moment, and we'll get to this. Thank you so much. Keep your comments coming in and keep saying, you know, where you're tuning in from. That would be amazing. But when you mentioned about the school bell and the sensory and the noise, honestly, that literally threw me back to a school. I mean, the bells have changed. Before it was like literally hit the bell, but you're absolutely right. The minute you are engrossed in something from an ADHD point of view and you're hyper-focused and you're looking at this, and then suddenly that bell goes off and someone says, you stop, not just stop, but you stop immediately.
Pens down. Okay?
Heads down, pens down, pens down, and go. Now, for me, with my ADHD, my dyslexia, and, you know, there's probably other traits of other different things going on, but if I was just to say, when I'm working on something and hyper-focusing, I could spend hours on it, or I could spend a couple of minutes, okay, depending on what the interest and bits and pieces. However, when I'm trying to stop a task, that takes a process. So my incredible wife, she will literally then, if we're going out or something, she'll say, not like I'm a child in a sense, but it just works for me. So it's almost, we're going out in half an hour, or we're going out in 20 minutes or 15
Lovely.
minutes, 10 minutes. Now in my head, I've got enough time to try and break down what it is that I'm doing. If if I'm working from home or anything else like this, I have enough time to do that. If it's shut down and go, wherever I am going, I am not there. All I'm thinking about is what I was, don't get me wrong, I'd still be thinking about bits and pieces, because we overanalyze everything. But I will still be in front of that laptop or working on what I was working on if it's stop immediately. Now, I'm not saying every single time you can give a countdown and stuff like this, but you imagine that in every single lesson, you've got a countdown, you're a stop, and then whoosh, straight off to a different topic.
8 times a day.
8 times a day throughout the years. Wow. I'm a bit speechless on this, because
I'm going to give you another noise. The noise that happens after the bell when all the chairs screech back. That's a noise. That's a horrible noise for me, and yeah, I feel noises. I feel noises.
I do. It literally, it could be anything. A ticking clock. It could be someone sighing. It could be chewing. It could be anything. And these things I will literally hyper focus on in that sense. But you're absolutely right. So if we say we went into the workplace and we're asking someone that, say, commutes, so they have to get on the train, or they have to get on the tube or the bus or whatever it is, right? And they drive in and they've got all of these different sensory things. And then they go straight into a working
and they're probably
late. And then you work, the biggest thing that I find difficult whenever I was kind of working in an office environment is they say about the water cooler talk. Okay. The standing there. Now, those things I find quite tricky. I find tricky starting conversations. I love conversations. I love meeting people. Okay. Sometimes I find it difficult starting conversations, but I find it very difficult answering certain questions from the off. So if someone said, like, I'll give you an example. Someone has said to me before, how was your weekend? Now, that is a very easy question for someone to go, didn't really do much. That was fine. I did this. Do you know what I've done in the past? I've told someone that I've gone snowboarding. I've literally said, I went snowboarding, and they've gone, what, the weekend? Where did you go? What, did you go to France or something? And then in my head thinking, oh no, it was a dry slope skiing place, and I did snowboard. I've never been snowboarding in my life. But it's that initial nervousness of, I need to answer and give you something that you're going to find intriguing, or I can't just say, I don't know. Have you ever been in those situations, or do you understand?
Yes, but what's really interesting here, and I'm going to put my coaching hat on, is it's absolutely okay to say, I didn't do much. The problem is the shame of all the years, right, of what opinion might they have if I say I haven't done much, because you're forever in defense mode until you get what's going on. That's why you made up about the snowboarding. I mean, before I spoke to you, circled small talk. I mean, I'm really good at small talk. I'm really good at talking to strangers. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Small talk bores the crap out of me, right? Because I want to get really deepy in and say something like, so how was your relationship with your mother? Or, how's it going with your partner? Are you, or here's one that blows people away. And it's so simple. So are you happy at the moment?
Wow.
I don't want to talk about blah, blah. And I think that's because ADHDers are forever trying to connect. We need to find a connection. And within 10 minutes of a small talker, I will probably make excuses and leave.
Yeah. Do you find that you connect more with people who have ADHD, or do you find it because, I don't know, like, I'll give you an example. We've connected on social media, okay, on LinkedIn, right? But we've never physically met in that sense. Within like a couple of seconds of meeting, we're laughing and joking, and it's instant in that way.
And so, I believe that the reason why we can do that is we have this immediate sense that we probably aren't judgy people.
No.
Because we've gone through this undiagnosed for so long. And so the moment that you know, you chuck out, I did this, or I could say to you, you know, when I used to wait for cabs in London, someone would turn around and I'd have got a paint pot out and I'd have been painting, touching up all the wall in my black, gorgeous dress. And then you'd come and give me one and I'd give you one. And what's brilliant is neither of us will ever do this face to one another.
No.
And that's safety.
Yeah. It does feel, this is why it's been a real blessing within the community side of it, and doing these talks and everything is I just feel it is a safe environment, and I've been very humble with people coming on and sharing their stories and their experiences, because it goes out live and lots of different people, you know, view it, and it's amazing, you know, to spread the awareness. But it does feel, whenever I'm speaking to someone in that, you know, in that kind of community side of it, you do feel like they get me, you know, and I think we've spent so many years people not getting us, and we're not just getting it, and that's been the you know, to then sort of be your true self, and especially if you're experiencing shame, because we always seem to be like, people would say to me, or, you know, and probably say to you, you know, you have an incredible you know, CV of like phenomenal achievements, and you continue to keep going and going and going and inspire and work hard and stuff like this. But people would say, you know, oh, well, it's lucky, it's okay for you, or, you know, these kind of things. But they don't realize how much hard work on a daily basis it takes, I'm sure, for you, Mel, to achieve what you've achieved, to continue achieving what you do, and helping the many people that you help.
And to find the right outfit on the wardrobe, but quite frankly, it's about half a metre tall because it gets blasted once a week.
I don't want to talk about outfits. Because I'm not too sure whether I want to share the t-shirt saga, but
I think what's really interesting is that of the clients that come to see me, the ones that are having the hardest time are the ones that have not told anybody they feel this way, and they've not found any ally. Look, 1 in 5 of us are neurodivergent, right? You can keep this secret hidden for as long as you want, but it's really hurting you, and it's not doing much good on your health. When you strategically start to disclose to a few people, and most of them will go, yeah, we knew that already. You think, what? Or they say, oh yeah, I am as well. What? And your whole system starts to calm down when you find someone like yourself.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, well, if it's 1 in 5, 1 in 5 of those were in my school classroom, but I have no idea who they were. Some of them are obvious, but it could have made my life so much easier if we had shared it. So very much about this phone call and this chat with you today, Darren, is maybe we're ashamed of something that we don't need to be ashamed of anymore.
That's so powerful.
Well, that's what made me feel happy finally, was realizing that this validation, both the external validation, which wasn't very good as an ADHDer, because we want praise and being told constantly, oh, you've got your top on inside out. Oh, you've broken that earring I've lent you. Or why don't you get, you know, all of that, which was just us being clumsy. Oh, you've got no milk in for the morning. God, you know, which all goes in, means that from a very young age, we don't create the method and tool of internal validation. So that should someone say it, we can say, oh, well, that's fine. Or they didn't mean that. Or so what, I'll get milk later. We are thinking, oh my God, I nearly got caught out, nearly got found out, this whole business. And so I think that we've missed loads of opportunities at making ourselves feel safer and more confident. And you've got to start today by realizing there are some amazing positives that come with ADHD, but you've got to start looking at your relationship with shame.
Absolutely. But on that topic, you wrote on your blurb that you sent me. You said, and it was incredible. And I'll just read this for
this is just spot on.
So, you know, did you know that by the age of 10, ADHD children will have received on an average 10,000 10,000 negative paper cut messages and looks. So as you so rightly said, Mel, that kind of tut-in, that look, that side-eyed kind of, oh, they're doing it again.
Why would I tell you? You're going to forget it anyway.
Exactly. So 10,000 negative paper cuts, messages and looks. This reinforces the fact that we're just not as good as X. We feel lousy and self-esteem plummets. Fast forward to adulthood. Broken marriages, job hopping, bad finances, problems with addictions, booze, sex, drugs, shopping, and the list continues.
God, it's positive.
We will get positive towards the end, but it just highlights, like, what that highlights for me is the journey that we have on, and and as you demonstrated earlier in the conversation, the bigger you and the smaller you, and you rattled inside, that journey, well, shame just continues. It continues because we just carry that baggage of, and we just change the environment. So the environment could be a new relationship or a new job or a new house, a new home, a new friendship. But we have this kind of shadow behind us where we're thinking, I don't want them to find out about that. And then you think to yourself, well, what is it you don't want them to find out about? And then you think, well, actually, it's other people's issues with me, but I'm carrying that shame because I feel I need to. Would you say that that's kind of how?
Yeah, totally. And I think, I did some crazy stuff to hide the shame.
Yep.
So let me tell you about relationships. I would, in my 20s and 30s, go out with people who weren't interested in me, so that there would be less chance that they would find out that I was holding this big secret. So I would go for people who were absolutely emotionally unavailable because I was safe in my moat then. What would I do at work to hide it? When I was on the low rung of the ladder starting out, I'd people please. I'd say yes to everything. I'd be so helpful because that way it was almost a safety currency that they'd never then shame me because they couldn't, because I'd been so helpful to them. So that was also a false economy, and the other thing that's and I've actually got a few things I'll go through in a minute about how it really, really affects you at work. But one of the worst things is, because of this lack of validation that every child needs and all these paper cuts and funny negative messages, etc., we have forever felt that we're letting people down. And so in our neurodivergent emotional deregulation bag, we've got something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD. It's very well talked about now. And someone has only got to say something like in a work meeting, actually, we're going to go with Bob's idea. And that's it. You're going to resign. You're not good enough. This is obvious. This is why they looked at you funny at the water cooler on Monday. And you go into this. And I think what coaching does is it says, you go there because of that. So let's cut that up and let's start to think maybe Bob's was just really good.
Yeah. That rejection sensitivity.
Painful, physical pain.
It is, and I've experienced this many times. And it's one of the things that I try to understand myself as much as possible. Yet I can't fully control it, and you can. For me personally, I've tried to understand, like, really kind of understand my feelings. Okay, really try to understand, why am I feeling this way about this decision, or why am I feeling about something? Okay. Then I would dive down to thinking, okay, so the feeling is not personal, it's this, and this. But even with that exercise, even with unearthing all of those different things, this feeling inside me still has this element of rejection. And that could, and that could then lead, if someone didn't do that kind of work, or straight away, like you said, Bob's decision gets done, I'm going to leave the organization. How many people do we think, are leaving organizations through simple decisions that have happened without really thinking about the impact it can have on an individual within that way. It must be a colossal sum of numbers. And then that person then leaves that organization because not just because of the one occasion, maybe a couple of occasions, and it's just built up the
just
shame that
they're not good enough.
It confirms they're not good enough. So then they go on the I'm going to get another job. They get another job, first few weeks, first few months, really, really good. And then Bob's cousin works for an organization, and then they give the bits or the promotion or anything else like this. And then the cycle continues. And then we are in this continuous cycle throughout. And it can be really painful because we're just waiting for that.
I had a client a couple of weeks ago who hadn't got into the university that he wanted to get into, and it had really, really, really set him back. And we did some really simple exercises. In fact, I coached in the sea because we both loved swimming, and he'd stopped swimming because he hadn't got into uni. So I thought, right, let's get him back in the sea. So we swam. And I said, do you think the person in admissions sat there and thought, Johnny Smith is a really awful person, I'm not going to let him on my course? And he laughed and he said, of course not. And I said, but that's what your mind's told you, right? They didn't even know who you were. It wasn't personal at all. When you go to the post office and they pick the lady in the red instead of you, is that a personal thing? Well, no, it can't be. No, it can't be. So actually, a really good way of dealing with it when you're in that ruminating loop, which we are very good at with ADHD, is to immediately take the emphasis off yourself, throw it onto them, and think, why do you think they maybe came across a bit short that morning? And we have a laugh and we say, well, maybe they got a parking ticket from Wednesday, or maybe their husband told them that they didn't look nice in that hairstyle, or maybe this and that. And we have a real laugh about it. And it works really well with kids, because the way to sort of try and take away those looks, because I can't change those looks that are still going on in classrooms, is for them to, before they get angry and go into shame, is to think, maybe Mrs. Alice just ran out of all brand this morning, and that's why she was a bit moody, and it works.
That's a really, really powerful way of doing that exercise is really, really powerful, because it does take you out of the mindset that you're in.
Come out.
Yeah, to come out, to try and really kind of to understand it from a different person's perspective in that side. I want to kind of touch on the subject about kind of organizations and what their kind of, what we'd say, their kind of responsibilities, I guess, around certain things. What do you think organizations are, I would say, lacking, or there's kind of, obviously there's duty, care, and everything else that we have is, employers to do this. But what do you think organizations could do a little bit better from the experience of what you've experienced? Maybe around shame, or maybe around...
I think first and foremost, they can foster a culture where it's okay for you to come out and say, I'm not very good with that loud, noisy light. Or I find it really hard when you just come over and say, have you got a minute? I mean, that fills us with huge problems when we're shamey. Have you got a minute? Or to maybe, give someone a deadline rather than saying, come back to me when you can. I mean, what does that mean to my brain? My brain has no idea what that means, etc. But maybe, and also don't make assumptions about staff, because you might think little Mary over there is always on time and she's always working late and she's really diligent and she's really helpful. They might all be masking coping strategies of someone with ADHD. She might get home and just be like that, unable to even have a conversation with anyone. So all of that masking's got to be allowed to come out without there being any whatever. So maybe a good way of doing that is, I don't know, just talk about neurodiversity in the workplace, talk about how prevalent it is, highlight some of the things that come up. I mean, until somebody realizes what ADHD is, the fact that we interrupt, find it hard to switch tasks, not sure which task to prioritize, start a new task before we finish the task, because we're deficit of dopamine all the time. We want reward, 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 reward. Unless that's understood, you're just seen as being lazy, distractive, and annoying. So maybe explain about executive functioning to your entire team, pinpointing no one, and then that person might feel confident to come over. And then you as the boss can say, you know, what can we do to help you with that? And then you might find out they become your best employee on the team ever.
I couldn't put it better myself. You hit the nail on the head in the sense of, and a lot of it does come down to understanding the culture that you want to portray, you want to have within your organization, and how to understand the team. Okay, because the tasks are tasks. Okay, they probably, you create these tasks and that need to be done, and they need to be done, but it doesn't necessarily say how it needs to be done. And if we took the school system, for instance, we say you sit at a table, like we said before, you sit at a table, it's an hour, then the bell goes and stuff like this. But we don't need to reproduce the classroom system in a workplace. No. So there's other ways of learning. And I think as we evolve as humans anyway, I think we should be evolving lots of different points. And I think the workplace, there are some organizations doing incredible things, and there's some that's very stuck in the way, in the rigid way of doing it. And if we're in that way, then we're not really going to be able to understand our people, and the team, and get the best out of them. That then continues that cycle of someone feeling they're not good enough. Because if they struggle in school, and you create a similar situation in a workplace, 9 times out of 10 that person's going to struggle.
And if you don't foster people coming out and invite them to come out, and then they leave because Bob got the nod, all of that business, or you were late and a boss said a comment like, "Oh, you're here already." If they keep allowing these people to leave, they're only ever going to have an organization that has exactly the same people in it all the time. And that's not called development growth, is it?
No. So we need to is kind of to keep banging that drum in the sense of the awareness side of it. Absolutely. And I think, an organization really needs from every single person within the organization, from, whatever, I don't really kind of work on the hierarchy side of it, but if you looked at from the CEO, and then all the way up and all the way down, whatever that kind of looks like, it's touch point on every single individual in that organization. Because if you have your core values because we've become, workplaces, before it was kind of someone would join a workplace, they would work until they retire, and then they would leave. Okay, that was kind of the generation I knew. Someone would stay there for a long period of time.
Like
now it's
school.
Kind of, yeah. Exactly. But now it's a kind of, actually, I want to join your organization because your values align with my values. So if they align with my values and you have those values, then really the working environment should be in line with what the values are, and all of these different things. So I think there definitely does need to be more understanding. And I kind of just wish that we would get to a stage, because there's some organizations doing it, but we're still at that stage. We're still not, I don't even think we scratched the surface, to be perfectly honest, of where we could potentially take it. And
may I say, I feel particularly safe, like we said at the beginning of the conversation, in the company of fellow neurodivergents, because they are brilliant in a crisis, right? So A&E, full of them, firemen, policemen, so many of them have got ADHD, If we've got ADHD, we've got a 300% chance, or a 300% higher chance of being an entrepreneur. Most entrepreneurs have got some sort of ADHD going on. Self-employed people. Loads of people become self-employed. Why? Because they're entrepreneurial. But you know why else? Then no one's going to realize what shame they're carrying. Isn't that awful?
I got goosebumps again, because you're absolutely right.
Isn't that awful? Because that way, no one's going to look at you funny when you work on your own. But isn't that sad that maybe you're not bouncing ideas off people for fear of how they looked at you when you were at school, and that could make the better you? So it's all about, starting to talk about how you feel.
I want to just touch on, just before we kind of wrap up, because time flies. I could talk to you for the next.
I'm looking at the clock. I would love to keep talking to you. Let's do another 5.
Let's talk about access to work.
Okay.
Let's talk about what that kind of looks like for people that are that don't know about access to work, or explain what your thoughts are on kind of access to work. And again, obviously from from maybe the self-employed side of it, what's your thoughts on access to work?
So access to work is something that, most people probably associate with brown envelopes, which when they arrive in my house send me into complete chaos and shame, because what have I forgotten? So it's a government initiative, and access to work is really here to support anyone with any physical or mental impairments that have been around for longer than 12 months. You don't need to be diagnosed with ADHD, but if your boss and you recognize that that desk doesn't work for you because you keep standing up when you're making sales calls and annoying everyone else, and then the look of annoyance makes you then unable to make another call for a day, get out the loop, give them a different desk, get the funding from Access to Work, maybe give the couple of employees next door some loop headphones. I wear headphones, like tiny ones, so no one knows. I was on an aeroplane the other day and I had to put them in. I hear everyone's conversation and I don't like it. So there's money there. There's up to 60 grand a person there. So what do? You speak to your boss. If you're self-employed, you can do it yourself. And you simply fill in a form about where you find these difficulties at work, what these difficulties are. And if you're self-employed, you need your unique tax reference, and then you apply. You can find it on my website, which Darren, I know you've linked me in, and then they will come back to you. It's not a hard form to fill in. We hate forms, ADHDers. It's okay. I think the ADHD diagnosis form is one of the hardest forms you'll ever come across in your life. And then what happens with Access to Work is you have this pot of money, and that simply is down to the employee and employer to decide how to best spend it. So, for example, I coach people who are extremely creative, extremely entrepreneurial, but they're pretty rubbish at meeting a deadline, or when someone says, oh, could you do this as well? Does that mean I need to stop that thing and start that thing? I'm not sure. And then there's the shame of, oh God, I'm supposed to know what they mean. The shame, then it'll be probably 2 days off work, ill, etc., etc. Access to Work ADHD coaching is free to individuals. The government pays 80%, the employer pays 20%. And please don't let your imposter syndrome say to you, I don't think I'm bad enough to go for that. Speak up.
You described it absolutely elegantly. I would say anyone who's listening to this as well, is then please do. The links will be linked onto this if you're watching it live on this, and then when we put it onto YouTube and podcasts and everything else, I will put Mel's website details on there. If you need any assistance with that, then obviously please do reach out. But it is something that people are struggling with, and they don't realize, as in, workplaces on, and I think from an entrepreneurial point of view, we always think to ourselves, what support out there is that, to help us.
Yeah.
And as Mel's mentioned, so rightfully so, there is support there.
There is.
And it's, huge sums, and it could in the sense to really kind of help you then take your business to the next level, but you personally as well. And it's almost having that arm around you, I would say, of support.
And here's another thing, the funding that you get, can not only pay for a different desk or for ADHD coaching or even autistic or ADHD coaching. What it can also pay for, and there's heaps on LinkedIn, are virtual assistants that do all of the nightmare admin that we don't like doing. You can use that money for that.
Yeah. So I will link all of this up onto your on here, and please do reach out to Mel. Mel, it has been a whirlwind of a conversation. It has absolutely flown by, but I have enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you for sharing your time, but most of all, thank you for the incredible work you do for the community.
Thank you. That's really kind.
Because I know that sometimes, because you give so much, sometimes I'm sure, you get to a point where you just, you have to make sure that you look after yourself as well. And I know from following, the incredible stuff that you do, that you are all about helping people and giving back, and it's inspiring. And the amount of wealth of knowledge that you've got as well from the corporate side of it and from the the self-employed side of it is phenomenal. So anyone that's looking to work with Mel, I would definitely say you're onto a winner there. But thank you so much.
Drop the shame. Drop the shame. Lovely. Darren, thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Mel. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll speak to you very soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
So that was Mel. Please do reach out to her. Have a look at her website, and there are some links on there for the Access to Work if you are looking to get connected with Mel. That would be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for all of the incredible support and the messages that you have given over the past 2 seasons. Like I said, we're having a break now for season 2, but we will be back in the future for season 3. A massive thank you to our sponsors, Promova. The link will be in there. And again, a massive thank you to you guys, the viewers, as always, for all your support. Take care, guys, and we'll see you back in season 3.